In the bustling city of Lagos, Nigeria, where tall buildings touch the sky and colorful markets fill the streets with noise and life, there lived three sisters named Amina, Bola, and Chioma. They were triplets and looked exactly alike, with big brown eyes that sparkled like stars and curly black hair that bounced when they walked. But these sisters had a big secret. They had special powers given to them by a magical queen who lived under the water. The sisters could use their eyes to make rich men give them money and gifts. They would go to fancy places in Lagos like big hotels with shiny marble floors and nice restaurants where people ate food that cost more than most families spent on groceries in a week. There, they would find men with lots of money. These men wore expensive watches that glittered on their wrists and drove big cars. When the sisters looked at these men with their special eyes, something strange would happen. The men's own eyes would go cloudy like they were daydreaming, and they would feel a strong urge to give the sisters presents and money. It was like magic, but not the good kind you see in fairy tales. One sunny day, Amina went to the Palms shopping mall, a huge building with so many shops it made her head spin. She was wearing a pretty yellow dress and sandals that clicked on the shiny floor. As she walked past the glittering jewelry stores and clothing boutiques, she saw a man standing by a fountain. He was wearing a watch that sparkled like it was made of stars and shoes so shiny, Amina could almost see her reflection in them. Amina took a deep breath and looked at the man with her special eyes. Suddenly, as if pulled by an invisible string, the man walked over to her. His face had a dreamy look, like he had just woken up from a nice nap. "Hello," he said, smiling so wide it almost looked silly. "I suddenly feel like buying you something nice. What would you like?" Amina pretended to be shy, looking down at her sandals and twirling a curl of her hair around her finger. "Oh, that's very kind of you," she said softly. "I've been wanting a new phone, but they are so expensive. My old one doesn't even take good pictures anymore." Without thinking twice, the man took Amina's hand and led her to the phone shop in the mall. The shop had filled with shiny new phones, all lined up like soldiers. The man bought her the latest iPhone, a sleek device that cost more than most people in Lagos earned in months. Amina thanked him, her voice sweet as honey, and quickly left. As soon as she was out of sight, she started giggling to herself. She couldn't wait to show her sisters her new prize. But Amina didn't know that using her power had consequences. As she left the mall, a little boy selling newspapers tripped and fell right in front of her. All his papers scattered in the wind, and people walked by without helping. Amina felt a twinge of guilt but kept walking, clutching her new phone. Another time, on a warm evening when the sun was painting the sky orange and pink, Bola went to a fancy restaurant called the Yellow Chili. The restaurant was on top of the floor of a tall building, and through its big windows, you could see all of Lagos spread out like glittering carpet. Bola was wearing a sparkly blue dress that made her look like a princess. As she stepped into the restaurant, the smell of spicy jollof rice and grilled fish made her mouth water. She looked around the room, her eyes scanning the tables until she saw a businessman eating alone. He was wearing a suit that looked expensive enough to buy a small car. When Bola used her special eyes on him, it was like a spell had been cast. The man looked up, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. He blinked a few times, then smiled and waved Bola over. "Please join me for dinner," he said, his voice sounding distant and dreamy. "I insist." Bola sat down, pretending to be surprised by his kindness. They ate a delicious meal of pepper soup, grilled fish, and fried plantains. They talked and laughed, but Bola's laughter wasn't real. She was just waiting for the right moment. As the waiter brought the bill, the businessman reached for his wallet. But instead of just paying for the meal, he took out his credit card and handed it over to Bola. "Here," he said, his eyes looking unfocused. "Buy whatever you would want. It would make me happy." Bola took the card, her heart racing with excitement. But as she left the restaurant, she saw an old woman outside asking for money to buy food. Bola quickly looked away, trying to ignore the feeling of shame in her stomach. Chioma's trick was a bit different. She liked to go to art galleries, where paintings and sculptures made the white walls come alive with color and shape. One day, she visited a new gallery that had just opened in Victoria Island, a posh area of Lagos. Chioma wandered through the rooms, pretending to be interested in the art, but really, she was looking for her next target. Soon, she spotted a lady wearing so much gold jewelry it looked like she was glowing. The lady had a necklace, bracelets, and rings all shining in the gallery lights. Chioma walked closer, then turned her special eyes on the lady. The effect was instant. The lady's eyes went wild, then soft like she was looking at a beautiful sunset. "My dear," the lady said, her voice sounding far away, "this necklace would look much prettier on you." She started taking off her gold necklace, a beautiful piece with a pendant shaped like a flower. "Oh, I couldn't possibly," Chioma said, pretending to be embarrassed, but inside, she was jumping with joy. "I insist," the lady said, putting the necklace around Chioma's neck. It felt heavy and cold against Chioma's skin. As Chioma left the gallery, a street artist was packing up his paintings. A gust of wind blew one of his canvases into the street, where a car ran over it. Chioma saw it happen but didn't stop to help. She was too busy thinking about her new gold necklace. But getting all these things wasn't just for fun. The sisters had a big responsibility that came with their powers. They had to take their prizes to the underwater queen every month. It was part of the deal their mother had made long ago. A tricky the sisters had to keep their whole lives. On the night of the full moon, when the city was quiet and most people were asleep, the sisters would go to a secret place by the Lagos Lagoon. The water looked black in the moonlight, and strange sounds came from the darkness. Most people stayed away from the lagoon at night, telling stories of monsters and ghosts, but the sisters knew the real secret of the water. At midnight, when the moon was highest in the sky, Amina, Bola, and Chioma held hands and stepped into the water. It was cold and smelled like fish and mud. They walked deeper and deeper until the water was all over their heads. But they didn't drown. They could breathe underwater, another gift from the queen. They walked on the bottom of the lagoon, past schools of fish that glowed in the dark, and plants that reached out to touch them like hands. Finally, they came to a beautiful palace made of shells and shiny stones. It glowed with a strange blue light that seemed to come from inside the walls. The queen was waiting for them on a throne made of coral. She was very beautiful, but also a bit scary. Her hair looked like seaweed, moving even when there was no current. Her eyes glowed in the dark water. When she smiled, her teeth looked like sharp, like that of a shark. "Welcome, my children," the queen said in a voice that sounded like bubbles rising to the surface. "What have you brought me this month?" The sisters laid out all the things they had gotten: phones, jewelry, fancy clothes, and money. It made a pile of treasure on the palace floor. The queen's eyes sparkled as she looked at them. "Very good," she said, her voice full of pleasure. "You have done very well. Here is your reward." The queen waved her hand, and the sisters felt a tinge all over their bodies. They knew their powers were getting stronger. Next month, it would even be easier to get things from rich people. But as they swam back to the surface, each sister felt a little sad. They wondered if what they were doing was right, but they pushed those thoughts away. This was their life, and they didn't know how to change it. Weeks passed, and the sisters continued using their powers. But one day, something changed that would turn their world upside down. Amina met a handsome young man named David at a coffee shop called the Beanbag in Lekki. The coffee shop was a cozy place with soft chairs and the smell of roasting coffee beans in the air. Amina wasn't even using her powers. She was just sitting there, enjoying a cup of hot chocolate and reading a book. David came up to her table, holding his own cup of coffee. "Excuse me," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "I couldn't help noticing the book you are reading. It's one of my favorites. Mind if I join you?" Stopped her. David's smile was so genuine, his eyes so kind, that she found herself smiling back without any magic at all. "Sure," she said, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "I would like that." They started talking about books, then about music, then about their favorite places in Lagos. Before Amina knew it, hours had passed. She was surprised to find that she really liked David. He was kind and funny, and he didn't try to show off how much money he had like the men she usually talks to. As the sun started to set, painting the sky outside the coffee shop window in a beautiful oranges and pinks, David asked Amina if she'd like to go on a proper date sometime. Amina said yes without even thinking about it. For the first time in a long time, she felt excited about something that had nothing to do with her powers. Amina and David started going on dates, and they had so much fun together. Once, they went to the Apapa amusement park. The park was full of colorful rides and smell of popcorn and cotton candy. They rode all the roller coasters, screaming and laughing as the ride zoomed up and down and upside down. On the Ferris wheel, they held hands and looked out over the city. Lagos looked so beautiful up and high, with all its lights twinkling like stars. "I've lived here my whole life," Amina said, "but I've never seen it like this before." David squeezed her hand. "Sometimes we need to look at things from a different angle to really appreciate them," he said. Amina felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the hot day. She realized she was starting to care for David in a way she had never cared for anyone before. Another time, David took Amina to the Lekki Conservation Center. It was like stepping into another world, full of tall trees and the sounds of birds and monkeys. They walked on the canopy walkway, a long bridge high up in the trees. At first, Amina was scared. The bridge swayed a little as they walked, and she could see the ground far below, though the gaps in the planks. But David held her hand and told her funny stories to distract her. Soon, Amina was too busy laughing to be afraid. They had a picnic in a quiet spot, eating jollof rice and grilled chicken that David had packed. As they ate, a family of monkeys came close, curious about the food. Amina and David threw them some pieces of fruit, laughing at the monkeys' funny faces and acrobatics. As the sun started to set, turning the sky into a painting of orange and purple, David told Amina stories that made her laugh so hard her sides hurt. She felt happier than she had ever done before. For their third date, they went to Takwa Bay Beach. The sand was warm under their feet, and the sound of the waves was like peaceful music. They built sand castles, trying to make them as tall as possible before the waves knocked them down. They splashed in the waves, the water cool and refreshing in the hot sun. David taught Amina how to body surf, riding the waves to shore. At first, Amina swallowed a lot of salty water and got sand in her hair. But soon, she was gliding to shore, feeling like she was flying. As they walked along the shore, picking up pretty shells, Amina realized something that scared and excited her at the same time. She was falling in love with David. For the first time, she felt guilty about her powers and the secrets she was keeping. But Amina didn't know that David had a secret. He was the son of a pastor, a man who led a big church in Lagos. And strange things had started happening to David since he met Amina. He began having bad dreams about her. In his dreams, he saw Amina surrounded by dark shadows. She looked scared and kept reaching out to him for help, but he could never reach her. He would wake up in the middle of the night, his heart racing and his forehead covered in sweat. David didn't want to worry Amina, so he told his mother about the dreams instead. She listened carefully, her face growing more concerned with each word. When David finished talking, his mother was quiet for a long time. "I think we should tell your father about this," she finally said. "These dreams, they might mean something important." So David's mother told his father, the pastor, about the dreams. The pastor listened silently, his eyes closed and his hands folded as if in prayer. When David's mother finished speaking, the pastor opened his eyes. "I will pray about this," he said, his deep voice deep and serious. "God will show us the way." For 3 days and nights, the pastor prayed. He didn't eat or sleep, just prayed and listened for God's guidance. On the morning of the 4th day, he came out of his study with an idea. "Son," he said to David, "why don't you invite Amina over for dinner? I would like to meet her." David was excited. He loved Amina and wanted his parents to love her too. So the next time he saw Amina, he invited her to have dinner with his family. Amina was so nervous, but said yes. She wanted David's family to like her, but she was also scared. What if they could tell she had a secret? When Amina arrived at David's house, she felt very strange as soon as she stepped through the door. The house was nice with comfortable furniture and photos of David's family on the walls. But Amina felt like there was something in the air that was pushing against her, making it hard to breathe. During dinner, Amina couldn't relax. The food was delicious. Jollof rice, grilled chicken, and fried plantains. But Amina could hardly eat. She kept looking around, feeling like something was wrong. David's parents were very nice, asking her questions about her family and her studies. But Amina just wanted to leave. David noticed that Amina was acting strange. "Are you okay?" he whispered when his parents were in the kitchen getting dessert. "I'm fine," Amina said, forcing a smile, "just a little tired." After Amina went home, the pastor told David, "I think your friend might need our help. Why don't you invite her to church?" David was surprised. Amina had never mentioned going to church before, but he trusted his father. So the next time he saw Amina, he asked her to come to church with him. Amina didn't want to go. The idea of being in a church made her feel sick, but she didn't want to say no to David. She could see in his eyes how much it meant to him. So she told him she would think about it. What David didn't know was that the underwater queen was very angry. She had found out about Amina's relationship with David. One night, she appeared to Amina in a dream. In the dream, Amina was underwater in the queen's palace. But instead of being beautiful, everything looked dark and scary. The queen's eyes glowed red and her voice shook the walls when she spoke. "You belong to me," the queen said, her voice like thunder. "You must not see this boy anymore. If you do, there will be trouble. Not just for you, but for your sisters and your mother too." Amina woke up screaming. She was so scared that she couldn't go back to sleep. The next day, she tried to avoid David. She didn't answer his calls or texts, but strange things started happening to her. First, her bank card stopped working. When she tried to buy groceries, the cashier told her the card was declined. Amina was embarrassed and confused. She knew she had money in her account. She left the store without her groceries, her cheeks burning with shame. The next day, something even worse happened. Amina was walking down a busy street in Lagos. The sun hot on her skin and the air filled with sounds of car horns and people talking. She stopped to buy some fresh mangoes from a street vendor. Yeah, the yellow fruit looking juicy and delicious. As she opened her purse to pay, someone on a motorcycle zoomed by and snatched her purse right out of her hands. Amina screamed and she tried to run after the thief, but they disappeared into the crowded streets. She was left standing there, feeling scared and alone. The day after that, Amina woke up early to go to work. She put on her favorite dress, the blue one with white flowers, and ate a quick breakfast of bread and tea. But when she went outside and tried to start her car, nothing happened. The engine made a sad whining noise, but it wouldn't start. Amina felt like crying. It was like the whole world was against her. She had to call her sister, Bola, for a lift to work. As they drove through the busy Lagos traffic, Amina wondered if all these bad things were happening because of the underwater queen's warning. On Saturday, David called Amina. His voice sounded worried. "Amina, are you okay? I haven't heard from you in days. Did I do something wrong?" Amina's heart felt heavy. She wanted to tell David everything about her powers, about the underwater queen, and about why she was scared to go to church. But she couldn't. It was too big a secret. "I'm sorry, David," she said. trying to keep her voice steady. I've just had a really bad week. My car broke down, I lost my purse, everything's going wrong. Oh no, David said, his voice full of concern. I'm so sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do to help? Amina felt a warmth in her chest. David was so kind, so caring. She wished she could be honest with him. It's okay, she said. I'll figure it out. But, about church tomorrow, I don't think I can make it. I'm just too stressed, you know? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then David spoke, his voice gentle but determined. Amina, I think going to church might be exactly what you need right now. Sometimes when everything's going wrong, that's when we need faith the most. Amina started to protest, but David continued. How about this? I'll pick you up and drive you there. And I promise you, if you feel uncomfortable, we can leave right away. Please, just give it a try. Amina wanted to say no, but something in David's voice made her hesitate. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was what she needed. Oh, okay, she finally said. I'll go with you then. David let out a happy laugh. Ha ha ha, great! I'll pick you up at 9. And Amina, if you don't come, I might have to bring the whole church choir to sing outside your house. Despite her worries, Amina couldn't help laughing at the image of a whole choir singing on her street. Okay, she said. I'll be ready at 9. The next morning, Amina woke up feeling nervous. She put on her nicest dress, a pretty green one that her mother had given her for her birthday. As she waited for David, she paced back and forth in her living room, her stomach feeling like it was full of butterflies. When David's car pulled up outside, Amina took a deep breath and walked out to meet him. David smiled when he saw her, and Amina felt a little of her nervousness melt away. The church was a big building with tall buildings and a cross on top. As they walked in, Amina could hear singing. The sound was beautiful, but it made her feel strange, like her skin was too tight. Inside the church was full of people. They were all standing, singing and clapping along with the music. David led Amina to a seat, smiling encouragingly at her. As soon as they sat down, Amina started to feel hot and dizzy. The singing seemed to get louder and louder. She could feel something inside her, something angry and scared trying to get out. David noticed something was wrong. Amina, are you okay? He asked, his voice full of worry. But Amina couldn't answer. The room was spinning. She could hear a voice in her head, the bubbly voice of the underwater queen, screaming at her to leave. Suddenly, Amina collapsed. David caught her before she hit the ground. Amina was making weird noises and her body was shaking like she was very cold. David's mother saw what was happening and rushed over. She and some other ladies from the church quickly took Amina to a side room. The room was quiet and cool with soft chairs and a small table. In the room, the ladies started praying loudly. They said words Amina didn't understand, like, "We cast out these evil spirits." Amina felt like she was in a deep, dark place. She could hear the voices, but they sounded far away. Inside Amina's mind, a battle was happening. She could see the underwater queen, her eyes glowing with anger, but she could also see a bright light, warm and comforting. The light seemed to be pushing the queen away. After what seemed like a long time, Amina woke up. She was lying on a soft couch, and David was holding her hand. She felt different. It was like a heavy weight had been lifted off her. She noticed that the ring the underwater queen had given her was gone. During the prayers, it had become so hot that Amina had turned it off without even realizing it. What happened? Amina heard her voice weak. David's mother smiled gently at her. "You've been delivered, my dear," she said. "The prayers removed something bad from inside you. How do you feel?" Amina sat up slowly. She felt light, like she could float away. But she also felt stronger than she ever had before. I feel free," she said, surprised at her own words. The church ladies called Amina's aunt, who came right away. When she arrived, her eyes were wide with worry. "Amina, are you all right? What happened?" They explained what had happened during the church service. Amina's aunt listened, her face growing more and more serious. When they showed her the ring Amina had been wearing, the one that had heated up during the prayers, Amina's aunt gasped. "Ha! My other two nieces and their mother have rings just like this," she said, her voice shaking. "Could there be a connection to something evil?" David's mother nodded gravely. "I think we need to pray for your whole family," she said. "There is something dark here, but with God's help, we can overcome it." Amina agreed to talk to her mother and sisters about what had happened. She felt scared but also hopeful. For the first time, she thought maybe there was a way out of the underwater queen's control. Meanwhile, deep under the waters of Lagos Lagoon, the underwater queen was furious. Her palace, usually so beautiful, now looked dark and scary. The fish swam away in fear, and even the water seemed to tremble. When Bola and Chioma came for their monthly visit, swimming down through the dark water, they found the queen waiting for them. Her eyes glowed red with anger, and her voice made the walls shake when she spoke. "Your sister has betrayed us," the queen said, her voice like thunder underwater. "She has broken our agreement, and now you will pay the price." Bola and Chioma tried to swim away, but the queen waved her hand and suddenly they couldn't move. It was like they were frozen in ice, even though the water around them was warm. "You will stay here until your sister and mother come back to me," the queen said. They made a promise. They must keep it. With another wave of her hand, the queen sent Bola and Chioma into a deep sleep. Their bodies floated in the water, still as statues, while fish swam around them curiously. The next morning, in the sister's house in Lagos, Amina woke up early. She felt different after what had happened at the church, like a fog had lifted from her mind. She went to check on her sisters, excited to tell them about her experience. But when she opened the door to their room, she got a shock. Bola and Chioma were lying in their beds, but they weren't moving. No matter how hard Amina shook them, they wouldn't wake up. Scared, Amina called her mother and aunt. They rushed over, their faces pale with worry. Amina's mother looked at her sleeping daughters and knew right away what had happened. But she couldn't say anything in front of the aunt. Not yet. The aunt called David's parents. who came with some people from their church. As soon as they arrived, they started praying. The room filled with the sound of the voices asking God for help and protection. David's father, the pastor, then said something that surprised everyone. He turned to Amina's mother, his eyes kind but serious. For this problem to be solved, your family needs to tell the truth, he said. There's something you are hiding, isn't there? Something about these girls and their powers. Amina's mother started crying. She fell to her knees beside her sleeping daughters. It's all my fault, her voice breaking. I did this to them. I didn't mean to, but I did. Everyone was quiet, waiting for her to continue. Amina's mother took a deep breath and began to tell a story that shocked everyone in the room. Many years ago, when Amina's mother was first married, she couldn't have children. In Nigeria, not being able to have children was seen as a very bad thing. People would whisper about her, and her husband's family was always asking when they would hear a cry of a baby. Amina's mother was very sad and afraid her husband would leave her. She tried everything: doctors, traditional medicines, prayers, but nothing worked. She felt hopeless and alone. Then one day, a friend took her to a woman who lived near the river. The friend said this woman had special powers and could help her have a baby. Amina's mother was desperate, so she agreed to go. The river woman lived in a small but right on the water's edge. Inside, the hut was full of strange things: dried plants hanging from the ceiling, jars filled with things Amina's mother couldn't identify, and in the center, a large pot bubbling over a fire. The river woman gave Amina's mother some medicine that looked like thick green soup. It smelled terrible, but Amina's mother drank it all. The river woman then told her that she would have children, but there was a price. When the babies are born, you must bring them to me, the river woman said. They will belong to the queen of the river, and they will have special powers. But in return, they must use these powers to bring riches to the queen. Amina's mother was so happy at the thought of having children that she agreed without thinking. A few months later, she found out she was pregnant, and to her surprise and joy, she was carrying triplets. When Amina and her sisters were born, their mother took them to the river woman as promised. The woman performed a ceremony, speaking words Amina's mother didn't understand. Then she gave the woman 3 small rings. Put these rings on the girls when they turn 5, the river woman said. The rings will give them their powers. But remember, the girls belong to the water queen now. They must obey her, or there will be terrible consequences. Amina's mother finished her story, tears running down her face. I was told to put the rings on the girls when they turned 5, she said. The rings gave them strange powers. They were only supposed to use these powers to get money from rich men, not to fall in love. Now the river queen is angry and won't the other girls go unless we bring Amina back. Everyone in the room was shocked by the story. Amina's father couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had never known about this secret, this bargain his wife had made before the girls were born. The pastor stood up, his face serious but kind. What you did was wrong, he said to Amina's mother, but God is forgiving. If you truly repent and ask for forgiveness, He will help us fight this evil. He led Amina's mother in a prayer, asking God to forgive her and to protect the family from the water queen's power. As they prayed, something amazing happened. Bola and Chioma sat up suddenly in their beds, coughing and spluttering like they had just been underwater. They looked around, confused and scared. "What happened?" Bola asked. "The last thing I remember is being in the underwater palace, and the queen was so angry. The pastor told them to take off their rings. When they did, he prayed over the rings, asking God to break their powers. As he prayed, the rings seemed to glow for a moment, then turned dull and lifeless." The whole family hugged and cried. Amina's mother said she was so sorry over and over what she had done. With the pastor's help, Amina's father forgave her. The family promised never to go back to their old ways, to live honestly and faithfully from now on. In the days that followed, everyone noticed a big change in Amina and her sisters. They became kind and helpful, always ready with a smile or a kind word. They made new friends at church and started volunteering at a local orphanage, using their time to help others instead of tricking them. Amina and Deva's relationship grew stronger. They went on more fun dates, exploring Lagos together. They visited the National Museum, learning about Nigeria's rich history. They went to concerts at Freedom Park, dancing to the rhythms of Afrobeat music. They even started a small business together, selling homemade puff puff at local markets over the weekends. David even helped to set up dates for Bola and Chioma with some nice boys from church. Soon, all three sisters were in happy, healthy relationships based on honesty and mutual respect. The three sisters were happier than they had ever been. They were excited about their future, a future without secret powers or underwater queens, but full of love, family, and faith. They knew there would be challenges ahead, but they faced them together, stronger than ever before. As for the underwater queen, some say that on quiet nights you can still hear her angry bubbling voice coming from the Lagos Lagoon. But Amina and her sisters aren't afraid anymore. They know that the love of their family, their faith, and their community is stronger. It's stronger than any magic. And so, in the bustling city of Lagos, where tall buildings touch the sky and the streets are full of life and color, three sisters who once lived in fear now walk with confidence. The end. If you have enjoyed the story, please like the video, subscribe, and also share the story with your friends. I would love to see you again because I would miss you if you'd never subscribed and never watched our next video. See you then. Bye.